Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to episode 44 of the Alchemy Devlog. It's your pal Isaac here with the latest news from the team. In this episode, we're going to talk about new streamer mode layouts, the ability to duplicate NPCs in games, and some system builder updates. We'll also take a few moments to talk about what's next, things like Vampire the Masquerade, City of Mist, and I'll answer a few questions that have come in through our Devlog Q&A form since last time. If you'd like to ask a question yourself, you can find a link to that form in the description down below. Let's dive in. All right, first up this week, let's talk about the new streamer mode layouts. For this, I'm going to jump into any old game. Let's go into this Vaesen one. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my camera. I'm going to jump into another account, join this game again, turn on my camera again, maybe the other camera, there we go. I'm going to go back over to this one. Great, we've got both cameras here. Over here in streamer mode, I'm going to turn it off to start off with. We've released all 3 out of the 4 layouts here, and they're all disabled when you have streamer mode off. So none of these controls function when you haven't enabled streamer mode. By the way, when you turn that switch on, it makes the game accessible by people who aren't in the game too, who aren't players or GMs in the game. And that's why this is a big switch that you have to turn on. You have to have a link to the game and all of that sort of stuff, but still, that's sort of why that exists. Once you turn this on, you've got the different layouts available to you, and I'll show you what those look like after I launch streamer mode. Perfect. So I'm going to use my browser features to create a split view here and apparently kill my camera. See if reloading brings that guy back. There we go. So I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so that you can sort of see everything that's going on in one place. There's a lot going on here now between the animated background and Alchemy 3 times. But here we go. So over here on my GM side of things, in this really squished down view now, I'm going to open up that streamer mode panel and show you, this is the game plus cameras layout, which shows the GM camera and the player camera down here at the bottom of your game. And roles and chat go up above that stuff. So if I roll a die here, you see that show up there. If I switch to the game layout, the cameras disappear and you only see the chat messages and dice rolls that come into the journal and then fade away. Useful for games that aren't using Alchemy for voice and video, but still want to use streamer mode for something. For example, if you're using it for ambience and background scenes in an in-person game, you could turn on streamer mode and share this to a TV or whatever it is you want to do. Or maybe you're using OBS and different camera feeds with an overlay, and you want the Alchemy streamer mode as another layer in the mix, you can do that too. And that's sort of what the game layout is for. The last one that we have available today is GM camera, and that just drops a big old GM camera right in the middle of the screen. And you can use this for monologues or times where you're introducing a campaign and the other players aren't necessary. You use this for whatever you want. It's just a big old GM camera in the middle of the screen with a nice scene in the background. So if I resize this a little bit, you can see that it's still nice and centered in the middle of my streamer mode view. So I'll go ahead and close streamer mode out and bring this back up to normal size and talk about what's left. So in streamer mode, really the last 2 pieces that are visible here is the all cameras layout. That's going to be another layout similar to the GM camera layout that just shows all of the cameras for the GM and the players in the game on top of your background scene. So just like the GM camera shows one big camera for the GM, you'll see larger camera views for each of the players and GMs in the game. Useful for times when there's a lot of role playing and you just need the scene background as kind of an ambient, feeling of what's going on in the scene. But you don't necessarily need dice rolls or tactical mode. So great for those sorts of things. That's going to be coming soon, probably in the next maybe a month. We're going to be getting into some stuff with Vampire that I'll be talking about later that could delay this a little bit. The other thing that we have on the list is deafen. So you can turn off the ability for streamer mode to hear things. So if you're going on break for your stream and you want to make sure that hot mics don't go through to the stream, for example, you could deafen it to make sure that nothing happens over there audio-wise from your game. So that's it for the Streamer Mode Alpha this week, and we've got more to do, as I mentioned, but we'll be getting to it soon. Let us know if you're using the Streamer Mode Alpha and how you're finding it in our Discord or through the in-app chat feature down here, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. All right. Up next, we've got the ability to duplicate NPCs in-game at long last. This has actually been a feature in 5th edition games on Alchemy forever, but it was missing from non-5th edition games, but no longer. We have the ability to duplicate NPCs, and GMs everywhere rejoiced. Let's actually go back into that Vaesen game, because that'll be a great example. And I've got a Badger NPC in my turn order already in my NPCs panel. To duplicate an NPC, all you have to do is view it and then open its edit menu. And in this overflow menu, there's a duplicate option. Clicking on that will create another copy of your NPC and add it to the current scene. And it will be hidden by default so that you don't accidentally create something, a duplicate of something, and show it to the players. So it'll always start out as hidden. But then you can just always right-click and show to make that visible to your players. And you can do this multiple times if needed. And it's kind of a little bit, a lot of menu diving, I'd say. Maybe we'll surface it right here in the right-click menu eventually, but this is already pretty overloaded. So for now, find it in that overflow inside your NPC's character sheet. All right. We have a bunch of other smaller updates for this devlog period, mostly some nice fixes, a few UI changes, things like that. You can find all of that in the release notes down here in the What's New section of the app if you want to dive into each of those in detail. The last thing that I think I'll show off for What's New this week is some new things in our system builder that's still in a private beta. So let's jump into one of my universes for that and take a quick look. And we'll go ahead and just start a brand new sheet for this example. So I'm going to add a player character sheet. We'll call it Devlog 44, and we'll publish it. If you haven't seen the system builder stuff in a while, it's been getting some improvements as we've gone along in the beta period, and also as we're building out things for other systems like City of Mist and Vampire. We've been adding new features to it. One of the big ones to show today, I think, is probably the ability to delete things from the middle of a list. So we have this block called a list block right here in our layout blocks. And what this does is it gives you the ability to add or remove other blocks to a flexible list inside of your sheet. So in this example, I'll put a drop-down item inside of my sheet, inside of the list here. And if I leave edit mode and hit add item, that's going to add a drop-down item to my list. And I can continue adding multiple drop-down items that pull all of their options from the block as it was defined inside of edit mode. So if I click on, for example, this drop-down here in the list, and I give it a different option, we'll go with option A, option B, and option C. Instead, these now show options A, B, and C as the selections, and my previous selection of option 1 is now considered a custom option. So the way that these worked before is that you'd have to use this remove item button to remove the last item in your list, going all the way back up to the top. But now you can add multiple items. We'll go with A, B, and C on these. And now we have a nice handy dandy little remove option down here at the bottom of this menu that you can just click to remove option B from the sheet. And this also works outside of Sheet Builder. So this is my template for this character, but if I jump out of the system and go to the Premades tab and actually create a character from the Devlog 44 sheet, you'll see that it has these options pre-selected from what I had set up on that sheet template. but I can continue adding items here. And if I want to, I can remove them on this side of the sheet as well. In some cases, the ability to remove is, something we want to restrict. If it's something that's not, that should never be removed based on the way whatever system you're working on behaves. And in those cases, you can go in and actually configure that list to not allow removing items from it. That's an NPC sheet. We'll go to that one, edit. And then if I click in on my list itself, we have two options here to hide both add and remove, and to hide just the remove to give you the ability to add things. These two options are pretty rough right now. We're definitely going to be addressing these before we leave beta, and we'll probably be changing them to something else, but we do have the options to configure that today. So other than that, nice little user experience improvement, which by the way rolled out to any sheets that we've built using Sheet Builder, which is many of the systems we've released over the last several months. If you've noticed any situations where you can add things to a list on the player character or NPC sheets in those systems, you now have this ability to remove from the dropdown itself in those systems as well. So system builder upgrade that also impacts any of the systems we've built in the last several months. We are continuing to invite people to test the closed beta of the system builder features. That sign-up sheet has been closed for a while, and we still have, I think, like 50 or 60 people on the list to get in. So there's still kind of a lot to do. We may open it up again when we run out of that list in a few more weeks. We might open things up again. Stay tuned here. Stay tuned on our Discord for more information about that. All right, what else is happening and what's coming up next? Last episode, I jumped into the content roadmap and talked about things in here for a little while. We have since updated this. It was quite out of date last time when I looked at it. We just recently released Broken Tales a couple of weeks ago. That's been doing really well. We also are in beta on Vampire and City of Mist. Officially, we have a closed beta test happening with a small group of people for both of those systems. City of Mist has been going well. Vampire has been going really well. And then Outgunned, I should probably mention, has just been kind of sitting for a little while because we need some new reroll mechanics for that system that we haven't had a chance to dive into yet. But I would say that Vampire is going along really nicely, and we're actually going to be focusing really heavily on that over the next couple of weeks so that we can have it be totally ready and rock solid for October, where there may or may not be some really cool vampire things happening on Alchemy. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll have City of Mist out soon as well. Whether that happens before or after Vampire is a little bit up in the air. Just kind of depends on what we need to get addressed based on feedback from the beta period. But we do have limited resources to work on these things, and Vampire is our top priority right now for sure. After Vampire and City of Mist are done, we will be jumping into Call of Cthulhu, and I hope to have a beta test period for Call of Cthulhu happening maybe after the Vampire month, probably towards the end of the Vampire month. So sometime this fall, look for some Call of Cthulhu beta testing opportunities from us. And then we have just a handful of other kind of smaller in terms of scope systems to go through from our V1 list. Things like Degenesis, Cyberpunk Augmented, the Wild Sea, Stillfleet, Shift, and this small system you may not have heard of called Pathfinder. We think that one's going to be really quick and easy to just kind of get out there on Alchemy. It's just going to be a slam dunk. We'll get that really fast. That's a joke. A huge system. Obviously, we're going to take a lot of time with Pathfinder to make that as cool as it can be, but that's way down the road. So beyond these next couple of weeks, beyond Vampire and City of Mist stuff, there will likely be some global changes to things like dice rolling and to actions to help support these systems, as well as hopefully getting in to do that streamer mode all cameras layout, although that may take the back seat to Vampire stuff over the next couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens there. In the meantime, we've got some great tools at our disposal for getting streamer mode going. And by the way, it's been really cool to see some folks out there using streamer mode for their streams. So I've seen a few links dropped into our Discord of people who are actually using this for their streamed games, which is very cool. So the alpha is kind of at least meeting most of the needs for some of those streams out there already. It's very cool to see it in use. Last on the list for what's kind of coming up next, you've probably seen by now Dan's awesome Alchemy Guides series here on YouTube. We have more videos coming out for that all the time. I think there's been maybe 4 or 5 releases in that series since last episode, including just recently, I think just yesterday, one on how to play D&D 5th edition on Alchemy. We do things a little bit differently for 5th edition, and I'm sure many of you have tried it out on Alchemy. But if you haven't, or you're curious about what it's like, give that video a watch on our YouTube, and it'll teach you all about it. We plan on doing those types of things for many of the systems on the platform so that you can get a deep dive into how to play something like Dragonbane or, Vampire once we have that out there. Those deep dive videos that show you specifically how each system works, we find really valuable because each system on Alchemy does behave a little bit differently. We have to do things slightly differently to adapt for the rules of the different games, and so it's really good to have that deep dive into each system. So look for more of those coming soon. All right, let's dive into Q&A. That's not Q&A. There it is. All right. Cosmere RPG. Martin, hello again, Martin. The Cosmere RPG was successful and then some in their Kickstarter campaign and included a number of VTTs. Alchemy was mentioned, but only insofar as it was under discussions. As my preferred platform, and because I love the way you translate content onto the VTT, can I ask, nay plead, nay beg, nay humble myself before you so that the Cosmere RPG comes to Alchemy? If bribes are needed in the form of cake or wine, let me know where to send the parcel. In all seriousness, the way the system is designed, from what I can tell through the demo, Alchemy is so perfect for it. Thanks so much for your ongoing hard work on the platform, Martin. So I can address this one directly with an official statement from us today that we are in communication with Brotherwise, and we have a handshake deal with them to bring Cosmere to Alchemy closer to its retail release. But we do not have anything signed just yet. But like I said, handshake deal. Stay tuned for more. Symbaroum, another one from Martin. I know in the last devlog update it was mentioned that some systems would receive some more love and be worked over. Is Symbaroum one of them? I really want to run a game, but at the moment the implementation feels incomplete. I can't roll on abilities, there's no way to add modifiers, which means my players would have to remember them manually, and character creation feels a little clunky. I love the assets and scenes you've created, and many of the pre-made handouts are great, so I would love for the system to be a bit more fleshed out. Thanks, Martin. Yeah, so we'll definitely revisit Symbaroum soon. The ability rolling thing definitely sounds like a big issue that we should investigate very soon. In fact, I might dive into that pretty soon. Character creation, we have some big plans for that sort of holistically throughout Alchemy, but those are for another day. But Symbaroum will definitely be included in that batch, getting some nice character creation improvements. All right, last up for this week, we've got dice rolling from the Demiurge, another usual suspect around here. I have a couple questions regarding dice rolling options. My group plays a lot of dice pool-based games, Coriolis at the moment, but have not found a good way to add or subtract dice to a specific roll. While you can right-click and edit a skill or action prior to rolling, that permanently changes the dice associated to that roll, and it then has to be removed after. There's also the separate roll feature by clicking on the icon at the bottom, but if used for the extra dice, they aren't included when pushing the original roll, etc. Am I missing something? Likewise, is there a way to hide a single GM roll rather than the all or nothing option in the game settings? If not, both would make great UX improvements down the road, for example, options in a right-click menu or something similar. Keep up the awesome work, Alchemy team. Best, the Demiurge. Yes, so clicking on the dice buttons at the bottom to modify your roll is the best option. And we'll need to make sure that that gets added to push and reroll soon. I can imagine that we didn't fit that in for pushing rolls when we rolled that out recently. So I'm actually going to be working on some related changes to the dice tray and how it relates to actions, even I think as soon as next week. So I'll definitely be taking a closer look at that myself. As for GM roles, we definitely need to rework that feature soon. I know there's a number of issues with it. It doesn't work in certain situations, and it's kind of confusing when it does work, and it's a little bit hard to get to, as you've alluded to here. But I think you do have a couple of options today that might work for you. For simple roles, you can use the /GM roll command. Just type that into the journal, and you can make a simple dice roll like 1d20 plus 7, 4d6, plus 1d8, whatever it is you need to do with simple dice. You can do that in a /GM roll command, and that will roll privately. For other types of roles, you could go in and toggle that setting on in the game settings, as you've mentioned. Go out and do your rolls, and then go back in and turn that off, and your rolls will be public again. A little bit clunky, a little bit hard to do that. I definitely think that we can and will make some big improvements to that. For example, your idea of just right-click, do this thing privately. That would probably be a great way to handle that. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. And we do plan to rework that before V1 because it's kind of a critical part of several games to be able to hide those. And we need to have that working for V1. So we'll be circling back to work on that soon. Cool. Thank you all for the questions this week. If you have one of your own, you can find a link to the form to submit your question down below. All right, that is it for this episode of the Devlog. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, head on down below and press the like button. Subscribe for future updates. It really helps us out a lot. And we have a lot of great content coming out on our channel besides just devlogs every other week. We've got the content, the Alchemy guides coming out from Dan on a pretty regular basis. Every week there's more stuff landing on that playlist. So subscribe and get notifications to find out when those drop. Thanks for watching. Let's go play some games.